All right. So today we're going to be talking about practicing, everyone's favorite thing to do. All right. And basically, we're going to be talking about the ideal way to practice, the most traditional way to do it. And I'm going to go over a few tips with you guys. And I'm going to share with you an idea that most tabla legends are currently or have in the past have used to just become masters of this craft. Now, because in modern day and age, everyone's always in a rush. You know, they want to get better quickly. They want more likes on social media quickly. No one really practices like this anymore. And combine that with social media and just our phones. These things right here just being so distracting all the time. In fact, I'm going to flip mine over. Here, I'll put it right here. I'll flip mine over. And, you know, the short form content, people can't really focus for a long time. So that's what I'm going to get into today. We're going to talk about our monthly focus practice plan. I'm going to change views a little bit so it's a little bit easier to read. There we go. It still might be a bit hard if you're on a smaller screen, but these are just bullet points. You know, I'll be going over and I'll be talking about them basically. But if I can summarize what I'm going to talk about, yes, Ishan, I see you in the chat. You're agreeing. Yes, thank you. Is that when we sit to practice, we don't really have any sort of plan. I guess that would be one stage of practicing. You just kind of sit down and you make something up to practice. But I think it's really important to at least write down on a piece of paper, like I have a few papers, everything that you like to practice. Now, for me, this was a list of about 33 or 35 different things. I wrote them all down, and I would try to practice them in different ways. But basically, the core idea is if you try to practice every single bowl, I think I dropped something. If you try to practice every single bowl in each practice session, you're not really going to make much progress at all with any of them. In fact, you'll make a little bit of progress, but it won't be consistent. You'll go out, you'll try to play a solo somewhere, and sometimes it'll land really well, sometimes it won't. Your emotions will just go up and down. Sometimes you'll be happy, sad. It's not the best world to be in. I've been in that world for about a year and a half. Been very frustrated with that. So that's kind of where this stream comes from. Now, who's this for? This is kind of for those that are already intermediate and advanced. If you're just starting out, make sure your hand is set properly before you try to do this. Practice step by step, whatever composition you get. Really focus on it. But the way that you can apply this stream to your own playing is that you can kind of not ask for whoever your teacher is for new material each time. Whatever you have, really focus on it and try to master it before you move to the next thing. So that would be my advice for if you're just starting. Now, one thing is I don't really focus on all of tabla on this channel. You guys have probably noticed that. There's a lot of things I actually don't cover. I don't cover many complex baltas, intricate tihais. If I have one goal, and really I guess one gift, is the gift of clarity, and that's what I really want to share with all of you. I want everyone playing whatever they want to play from any gharana, just with the utmost cleanliness and clarity. So that's kind of my goal with this channel. There'll be a lot of other teachers that go very in-depth, and it's it's fantastic if you want to go in depth. There's many tals I don't even fully understand. Here in the West, we cover just a few tals. In the chat, Ishan is saying, I'm from India, I'm 17, and I can understand your language. Something that what you said. Yes, thank you. I'm glad it's making sense. So basically in the West, we don't have a lot of, very deep tals, like maybe matta tal and stuff like that. Here it's pretty basic. Teen tal, dadra, kerva, rupak, stuff like that and also vilambit ekdal rarely. But that's kind of, I don't cover all of tabla, so like that. And yeah, of course, I'm technique and sound quality first. I would just be happy if everyone had the perfect technique and the sound quality. Then all the kaidas and paltas you can learn from books or other teachers. Just from me, get this idea of good sound quality. So yeah, and I'm really not the best source for ultra complex variations. There's someone in one of our Discord groups, his name's Eric, fantastic at just the most complicated time cycle variations and things like that. And, it's just very complicated. I'm glad you agree, Ishan, in the chat. All right, so the 5 aspects or the building blocks of tabla, these are simple. I've covered these quite a bit, but just to kind of go over them one more time. Dhere dhere, everyone's favorite. Everyone is so fascinated by this. I think because it looks so cool, and you can get a lot of views on social media. Vilambit dals are very difficult. Yes, I definitely agree. Vilambit ekdal. That's why you won't really see any tutorials on this channel of Vilambit ekdal. I'm pretty good at it, but I can definitely make mistakes here and there. So yeah, the 5 aspects of tabla playing, dhere dhere. We have terikite, of course. I think when I've done polls on people's favorite bowl, terikite comes up. And of course, there's 2 ways to play it, full hand and terikite. 2 different ways. Both are important to practice. A lot of people say that, I'm from this gharana, we don't play this kind of terikite. I don't agree with all that. You should be playing both ways of terikite just because, different moods and different settings can require, different kinds of terikite. You want to be versatile. Don't put yourself in a box. So that's terikite. Then, of course, my favorites, dhenegene and nanagene. Awesome bowls to play. Tete, full hand and 2 finger. I can't admit that I really like practicing tete a lot because it's what you start tabla with. And I always feel like, oh, I'm a beginner practicing this again. But very important to practice is 2 finger tete. Will bring the balance to your hand. Really important. I only realized this way later. And of course the baya, which if you haven't seen yesterday, we covered an entire stream of just fantastic baya exercises. Check that out. So basically what the idea is the hero aspect, kind of. So what does this mean? This means that every month you should pick one of these aspects. Like let's say, for example, January for me will most likely be the baya. I'm glad you agree in the chat. And January for me will be baya. So everything that I cover will basically always imagine like it's a kaida. The main theme is the baya. So whatever other bowls I play, I'll always return to the baya and practice a lot of that. So this would be, and of course, blending the bowls like this, and I'll get more into this. I don't think I make complete sense right now. Blending the bowls like this is the way a lot of different relas and compositions have been made. For example, this comes to mind. There's one rela, I'm not going to play it fast and butcher it, but it goes something like this. So dha terikita ghere tere terikita taka dha terikita taka taka din terikita taka din nanagin. So you can see there's a lot of different bowls. There's nanaghene. There's all sorts of, different bowls in this. That, I believe, came from people practicing in this kind of style. They have one bowl they're practicing for just a month, and they just keep blending things, and they kind of come up with that. Most likely the bowl they were practicing that month was nanaghene. So that's kind of how they came up with that. So, for example, this could be a weekly template that you practice when the baya is the hero. So, for example, on Monday, you practice baya and dhere dhere. So, what could you do with that? You could do something like ghitataka, dhere dhere, ghitataka. So, I might as well play that a little bit. So, let's say you could do, for dhere dhere, this is what comes to mind. So, So stuff like that. You could do other things like that. I'm trying to figure something out right here. So stuff like that. You could kind of blend different bowls together like that. The point is you got to be really creative. Just sit down and have the intention of combining dere dere and baya, with all different sorts of relas, and something will come. Just sit with it as long as it comes. And the other fun thing is you have to be creative with this. Next would be nanagene and henegene. So let's see, nanagene and henegene. How could you blend those? Yeah, you could do. I mean, that's not really an entire phrase, but I'm just pulling back on the baya, and I'm just playing. Then I can like just stuff like that. You got to be creative. Nothing's really coming to mind right now. In other streams, I'll put more thought into exactly how this could go. But that could be something for your baya and henegene. Baya and tete. Now, this is something I covered yesterday. Glad you agree, Ishan in the chat. For example, you could play this if you want to practice baya and tete. You could practice dhati gete, or by the way, for baya and henegene, you could play dada. That's a good one. For baya and tete, you could play. This is really good for 2-finger tete, and you can even play it full hand tete, although that's kind of weird. If you're just starting out, but really play this 2-finger tete. And there's a lot of probably other kaidas, that where the baya is used for a good degree. You could do that. Now, baya and terekete. Now, this is a challenge. This, if anyone in the chat knows anything that could go good with baya and terekete. I want to give you some play tips to play dere dere. It's my Guruj style. You should fold your palm like you're holding a ball, then play dere dere slowly. Sound like duck duck, not chuck chuck. You try. Interesting. Might as well give that a try really quickly. All right, so you're saying what, fold like this? Like, I mean, my hand just naturally kind of opens, but I guess you could, fold like that. Even my teacher has talked about cupping the hand like that, So that's definitely good. I think we'll have a stream where you can come on and, I'd love for you to show me, other ways to play dere dere. I'm always even more. Yeah, my hand just doesn't really fold that much. I can't really get some sound unless that is the kind of point. It just naturally unfolds. So that's kind of, one thing to keep in mind. All right, so baya and terekete, we'll come back to that. And then, of course, on the last day, you can play any fixed compositions, laggis, tukras that have a lot of baya in it. There's a lot of different, there's a lot of different laggis, like, for example, you could practice dhatu nana, you have to keep the baya constant, like, it's just stuff like that, dhatu nana and stuff. So this is a way you can practice keeping the baya in mind. Pretty, different way of practicing, but you're really just always just coming back to the baya. Yeah, luggis are so much fun. Luggis, I have posted a lot of luggis on this channel. They definitely take a lot of practice. So that's, even just thinking about practicing dhatu nana makes me tired. Just try it. If ever there's a time you can't fall asleep, just try dhatu nana at the best speed that you can. You will fall right to sleep. So you might as well have your pillow behind you and, just like finish practicing and just fall asleep right there. So that right there is really good. Okay, so what are the downsides to practicing this way? So there is no practice method or really anything that doesn't have downsides in them. And I don't like, praising anything too much and not really being realistic about them. So the downside is this does require, a bit of discernment. You can't just kind of blindly follow this. If you get injured or, your bias hand starts cramping up, you can't just keep going the next day. You got to be mindful of that. You got to maybe take rest. You got to figure out your next move. You can't really necessarily just go, day to day. Your recovery has to be right as well. I'll give you an example, and right here I do a personal example. By the way, there'll be a much better document of this in the description. Let's see. You can play in Atgun, which means more fast, like in Tumri and Ghazal. Yeah, that's impressive. That's really good. It's really good. But I want to see what clarity, for what clarity you can play in. Big fan. Thanks for the content this year. Any tips for modulation? Is it better to pull back with the ring and middle finger and go forward with the index stroke? Does either work? All right, since we're talking about the bias, it's a good question. All right, is it better to pull back? So let's see. Is it better to pull back? Now, you should actually be doing both. There really isn't a better or worse. You should be actually practicing both. For example, if you check out the stream yesterday I talk all about, bias modulation. You should definitely be practicing, push and pull. This right here is a movement that'll cover both. So for example, this is a really good, really easy one. And I've heard, from one of Pandit Kumar Bose's students that he practices this for just hours. So one more time. So like that. And, if you speed up and you go, that's one of them. There's a document I actually created with all of these. It's in the link to my last stream. I have them all written out. One of the best ones for pulling back would be so like that. Pull back, push forward, do both of them. They're both really good. And yeah, if you guys want to send a clip in of your playing, I can check it out here on stream, tell you what I think as well. So back to this. Let's see. So I had an issue where, I couldn't put much pressure on the middle finger. And with that, I couldn't just go extreme bias every day. So I have to be kind of mindful. And let's say the middle finger is having discomfort. I got to adapt. I got to figure out, okay, maybe I'll play more with my index and my ring finger. It's the bias doesn't sound good, but, it's better than nothing. And maybe I'll figure out how to integrate my pinky. That's not so bad right there, but you'll have to adapt with this. If you feel your forearm cramping up, do things to kind of relax that. Don't push yourself so hard that, your body just doesn't really keep up. So that right there. And I just have one or two more things to say. If you guys have more questions, I'll answer them. These are the two approaches I've done before trying this. This may sound ridiculous, but this is an approach I've tried where I would sit down for about 2.5 hours and I would practice all my favorite 33 or 36 things in one session. The Lara, I've talked about this a lot. I use Lara box. By the way, now I don't really believe in using a Lara so much. Something on my mic. Anyways, I just find it distracting. I want to go deeper into the sound. But anyways, I would start at 61 beats per minute and slowly increase. The Lara would increase every 4 minutes. And I'd end around 109 beats per minute. And that's when I'd practice luggies and things like that. And I actually had this all written down. I don't know if it'll show on camera. But, look, I would actually write this all down and things like that. And if something was too fast, I'd move it here and, move this and that over there. And you can see, I don't know if you could see a 61. And, it was just really complicated and not the best way to practice. And then I had a second page. And then here at the bottom, I started formulating, another way to practice, So that was my attempt number 1 at practicing. And you guys can imagine practicing that way. I'm focused on the Lara, I'm focused on when the 4 minutes is up. I'm focused on all sorts of things. Am I playing it right? And I used to try to do this at 6 a.m. and I was tired and I didn't have tea. And anyway, it was just a mess. I did make some progress, but it was just a mess overall. So that was my first approach, and then I kind of refined that. I took that approach, and then I came up with my second plan. I know you guys can't read this on paper, but I just like to show that I do write things down, and this is a hole where my dog walked on it. I remember I was practicing. That's how much it means to her. She just walks on it. All right, anyways, and on here, I would have like different days. Like these are the 5 days of practicing, and I would kind of edit them, and I'd make sure, I was so scared before. This is one thing that almost kind of ridiculous. I would actually be scared to go a day without practicing a certain bowl because, oh no, I'll like lose, my skill at it or something like that. Or people on YouTube will think like, oh, this guy is just from the West and he doesn't practice. Like all these stupid things that I don't really think anymore would go through my head. So I had that approach. And then now I've, gotten to this approach that I shared throughout the stream, and it's just way better. It's a lot more comprehensive, and there's a lot more, scope for creativity in it. So that's why this is what I'm going to be going for. I'll share more. I do want, in closing, I would love to create a community just based on this idea that we're going a little bit deeper in our practice, and it'd be nice, as a community, everyone's just maybe working on their baya in January. February would be, Dene Gene or something like that. So that would be something, I'd love to do. And one of the things that Ishan is saying, in the chat, he's skeptical. One of the things that, I kind of feel I've made a bit of a mistake on is in the communities I've created, especially Discord, which I don't know if you guys are in. It's a good group, but there's just more talking than actual practicing. Like the point wasn't to really make a group where people could like make friends and hang out, although I guess that is what Discord is. But I wanted people to really find other people to practice with, because for a long time, I didn't have anyone to practice with here in Houston, Texas, which is in the USA, if you guys don't know. It was just very isolated. There were some groups I would practice with. They were either a lot younger than me or they were just starting out, but there wasn't really anyone to practice with. So that was my goal. So I would form, another community if people were interested just for something like this. And it's just an idea, but yeah, that's really all I've got when it comes to practicing one aspect of tabla a month. So that's that.